So we need that foundational piece of legislation that's going to cap carbon, put a price on dirty power, and really set the direction for the nation. So in some sense, you know, all of our lives' works, no matter how old we are culminating this year in this moment. And the question that I want to talk about this morning is, how do we keep all of the people we know have been fighting for this and engaged in this struggle and have this hope involved? How do we give them opportunities for leadership over the coming year, and in particular in the academy? Because the Focus the Nation initiative, the National Teach-In, was all premised on the idea that, you know, at every college and university in the country, there were 4 or 5 or 6 or a dozen people who were sharing this same sense of urgency and knowledge and awareness, and were ready to engage, and were looking for ways to mobilize their own communities. And what we did was we provided a platform for leadership. And we said, you know, on this day, join the teach-in, you know, here's some ideas, but you have to run with it. So what I want to try and do this morning is to get a sense of how we best, our network, can best engage people again this year in, and keep them engaged. So keep the power of, especially young people, in front of Congress as, you know, as these issues are weighed in the balance. Let me talk about the challenges that I think that we face here, and I want to do this in small group as well in terms of conversation. With the initial Focus the Nation effort, Chung-In and I had 18 months of lead-in, and we used the primaries as sort of our vehicle, right? That we were going to engage the nation at this important political moment, political primaries. We're going to get all the candidates talking about global warming solutions. And at that moment in time, we weren't, the climate movement, if you will, was still a little bit less complicated. And so we were able to bring most of the players to the table in terms of agreeing that that was going to be sort of a focal point. So we'd had Step It Up. Bill McKibben had sort of, you know, independently, you know, we've been planning Focus Nation. He came up with sort of another one of these, the Step It, well, let me back up. What we did with Focus Nation the first year was the culmination of a new kind of organizing strategy, which was internet-based, and the basic idea was, let's shift from sort of, if marches in Washington were the kind of canonic organizing tactic of the civil rights movement, the idea behind the clean energy movement was, well, let's use the power of the internet to have coordinated national actions, mobilize people all over the country. And the first people to do this actually were the churches. Interfaith Power and Light, through Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth, they had 4,000 showings of the video. Then the Energy Action Coalition did this. They had a month of action in January 2007, where they had showings of the movie and other events on, I think it was 500 campuses, something like that. Then Bill took that out into the community with Step It Up in August or April of 2007. And then they tried it again in November of 2007. It wasn't very successful the second time. And then we did Focus the Nation in 2008, or January 2008. And so, you know, what we were doing was sort of building on the experience and success of those other initiatives. And what we brought and added to the table was that we provided sort of a safe way for people to do this professionally, so that people could acting as educators could engage, not as activists, but as educators. They could take on that role, and they could do it within their institutions. And we got 1,900 institutions engaged then. Now, we were unsure about whether to go and do it again, because we'd seen that Step It Up had been less successful the second time. It's always hard to do something the second time. The energy had people had put huge amounts of effort into the first Focus Nation effort in the Cal State system at Central Florida, and yet we felt like we needed to, because we needed to continue to engage. But what happened? The political landscape changed in the sense that everybody's efforts. We didn't really get geared up until September of 2008 to do the February 2009 initiative, and so we started serious organizing in September for this initiative. But of course, everybody's attention was focused on the election. So, as it should have been, right? So it was hard to get people's attention. The economy collapsed. You couldn't get anything into the media that wasn't about the economy. People weren't interested. And yet, just through brute force organizing and sort of the word of mouth and the networks that we had, still 800 schools were involved in the Teach-In this year. That's sort of the backdrop. And again, what I'd want to talk about this morning is, if anything, we should be able to envision compelling more energy and action from people this year, because this is the year that matters, right? This is the year that matters, on the one hand. On the other hand, I'm sensing a complacency out there. A sense that, well, Congress is dealing with it now, and we don't really need to engage. And I'm not sure that's the only obstacle. So I want to use this group as sort of a brain trust and focus group to sort of get a sense of what you think is going on your campuses in terms of, is the level of excitement and interest and engagement waning or waxing, and how can we tap into it? The other piece that for the National Teach-In Network, of course, is that I'm moving to BARD. And this is a good thing for me. I mean, it's a very good thing for me, because it really allows me to stop being a schizophrenic and have to go teach principles of economics and supply and demand, which I enjoy, but also trying to figure out how to do national engagement around global warming solutions. So my own personal life is coalescing in a beautiful and wonderful way. That said, I'm also assuming the responsibilities of running a graduate program, and I need to spend most of my time, focused on that. And yet, BARD has made it clear that they welcome my continued leadership of this network, that's also part of my job, because the BARD Center for Environmental Policy is a policy center. And, so we have an obligation to engage in that policy debate and discussion.